On this episode of Locked On Angels, we're recapping the weekend games, including the Spring Breakout game with 7 of the top Halo prospects playing in that game. And we're going to also talk about Yoán Moncada's injury and what the Angels are going to do with Luis Rengifo. And what about this number 5 starting position? There's a lot to get to. John and I got it covered. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to get back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On Everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube and leave a comment. It's really one of the best ways to get in touch with John and I and be a part of the conversation. And this episode of Locked On Angels is brought to you by Monarch Money. You can take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Just use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year.
Hey, thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Hey, we're so glad that you've joined us this Monday. We're in our 4th season as the host of Locked On Angels, talking Angels baseball every single weekday, Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. Mike, on today's show, we're getting into what happened over the weekend. There was a lot of eventful stuff, a lot of performances that we need to talk about, both good and bad, some injury updates, and Luis Rengifo getting out there on the field. Let's get into it.
Yeah, on what was it, Friday? Let's see, Friday, yes. It was a split squad game. The Angels played the Orioles and the A's. Before the game, Rhett Bollinger did send out this tweet. He said Ron Washington believes that Luis Rengifo has enough time to get ready for opening day as long as he doesn't have any setbacks. He also said that they're going to start using their potential opening day lineup on Wednesday. So we're going to pay attention to that, and we'll dissect all of that on Thursday's show. So how did Rengifo do on Friday? Johnny had a routine grounded to first in that game. He also reached on an error, and he struck out. He didn't have to run really hard while he was on base, which was good because hamstring injuries and running hard usually don't go together. He went to second on a walk, and then he scored easily on Kevin Newman's 2-out double off of the fence. And then after the game, after it was finished, Rengifo did say, "I'm going to be ready for opening day, and I just need to see some more pitching, and I'll be ready for that day." That's good news because in our final segment, we're going to talk about Yoán Moncada and his thumb injury. And so it looks like Rengifo will probably be the opening day third baseman for the Halos. But we'll get there in just a moment, John. Talk about the offense from Friday's game.
Yeah, I'm looking at the score, and I'm thinking this is great news against the Royals. The Angels were piling on early in this one. Kevin Newman hit a 2-run double, had 3 hits in this game. Soler hits a 2-run home run, majestic home run, Mike.
Yep.
His 4th of the spring. He had 3 RBIs in this game, the 2 with the home run and 1 with a double. Trout had an RBI single in this game, and then Moniak had a sacrifice fly in the bottom of the 5th, also stole a base in this game. But the Angels needed that offense because they gave it all right back in the 6th inning against the Royals. Specifically, Yusei Kikuchi gave it all back.
Yeah.
And he wasn't good in this one, Mike. A third of an inning, only recording that 1 out, 3 hits, 6 earned runs, and 2 walks. Mike, it's the same tendencies in spring that Yusei Kikuchi had last year. The off-speed pitches aren't in the zone. There's no reason for anybody to go swinging after that stuff. It's very obvious what's in the zone and what's not. And it's easy to just sit and wait on a fastball. And if you don't get the fastball, then the hitter is just going to sit there and take the walk. So Quijada came in with a 7-1 lead, gave it all back to the Kansas City Royals. Mike, Quijada in this bullpen, are you feeling a little nervous about this? Because at this point, I think I am.
I'm nervous. I'm very nervous because he still hasn't developed a secondary pitch. And that was something we talked about when he came back during the season last year. And what'd you do all off season, bud?
Right.
Like, what did you work on?
It's just fastball slider.
And that's exactly what he's doing. And John, the slider is not good.
No.
The slider is not in the zone. Any hitter that goes up there and takes a swing at the slider is not a major league hitter because you know it's coming. And you know when he was going to throw it. I'm watching this game, and he throws a fastball. It was, swung and missed. Then it was another fastball fouled off. Then another fastball was out of the zone. And then I was like, the slider's coming. And you could see the slider was coming. And these batters stood there with that bat on their shoulder, which was the right thing to do, the smart thing to do.
Yeah.
John, he's just not good. And he's not fooling anybody, and he doesn't have any options. And they did, have an arbitration. He got about $1 million this season. So he's going to be in this bullpen. I'm just really nervous about how they're going to use him in this bullpen, because right now you're up 7-1. That's an easy moment for him to come in. Yeah. And he gave all of the runs back to the Royals in this game.
Well, hopefully that letting him stay out there to be hung out to dry like that, I think, is an indication of, hey, dude, get your crap together. Yeah. We need you to be better than that.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I'm nervous about, they call him spicy, but his fastball's not been very spicy, Mike. And so that's also an area of concern as well. Meanwhile, we're sending Hans Kraus to AAA and
right.
Right? Guy struggles. Yeah, I get it. He had his struggles, but look, this, good grief, 6 runs. Come on. Now, on the more positive side of things, Yusei Kikuchi started this game, went 4 1/3 innings, 5 hits, 1 earned run, 3 walks, and 8 Ks. There was no StatCast in this game, but it did look like what he was doing last year with the Astros. Lots of swings and misses. He played off the fastball, off of his off speed. Hitters looked confused and unsure of what was coming. And Kikuchi said that he started to experiment with the sweeper this spring. In fact, from the OC Register, Jeff Fletcher had a quote from Kikuchi. It said, "It's a pitch I can keep in my back pocket, just pick and choose different spots to use it." And then Locked On Angels Hall of Famer Brent McGuire tweeted, "There's only one outing of StatCast data where Yusei Kikuchi threw 10 sweepers, but the pitch averaged 80.6 miles per hour with 16.1 inches of horizontal movement and 0.8 inches of induced vertical break from a pure perspective on stuff. That pitch would grade out pretty well." Kikuchi said his final tune-up for the season will be in a minor league game. Mike, the 3 walks and 8 Ks, I think that's going to be how it is with Kikuchi, because you have stuff diving out of the zone. It's different than Quijada knowing exactly what's coming with a pitch like a sweeper and that much movement, 16.1 inches of horizontal side-to-side movement. That's going to start in the zone and end up out of the zone. And so those guys are going to be chasing that more often. But if you lay off of it, that might lead to some walks with Yusei Kikuchi. So it's going to be interesting to watch. It looks like he danced around it, though, considering the 5 hits and the 3 walks, only 1 earned run. That might be what we get from Kikuchi. Nasty stuff, but the ability to walk a guy here and there.
He was good. Tyler Anderson was not in the second game against the A's. 2 straight starts, Johnny, where he's been lit up. And I know in the last start, he said he was working on some stuff. I'm throwing pitches that I probably wouldn't throw during the regular season. But in this game, it looked like he was kind of doing the same thing he did in his previous start. 3 1/3, 7 hits, 6 earned, 3 walks, 3 Ks. It's the walks that are concerning, because the hits, he's going to get hit, but the walks, and you're not in control, is something that makes me nervous about Tyler Anderson. He did give up a homer in this game. He was pulled with 1 out in the second inning. He returned to pitch in the third and the fourth, and he faced the first 3 hitters of the fifth, but he didn't retire anybody. I'm a little bit nervous about Tyler Anderson and not super confident that he's just working on stuff now, because this is his 4th start of the spring. And it's by now you should kind of have an idea of what you're doing, unless he was maybe trying what he did in the last game to see what would work, what wouldn't work. The A's also have rocked him in the regular season as well. So not super concerned, not Quijada concerned, but there is a, come on, let's get it together, Tyler Anderson concern that I have right now.
Well, I'm sticking to what I said at the beginning of spring. Give these guys 3 starts before, we start throwing them under the bus. And I'm with you. If Tyler Anderson is working on stuff, then I understand that. But if this is if he hasn't figured it out yet, or if he's continuing to work on stuff, that line makes me concerned. The A's scored a lot of runs in that game. One pitcher we were paying attention to in this one was Ryan Johnson. He went 2 innings, gave up 3 hits, 2 earned runs, and 1 strikeout. It was his 4th appearance this spring, and there is a possibility that he's going to be in the bullpen. And I look at somebody like him, maybe Michael Peterson, who would be in the pen in his 4 spring appearances that he's put up so far. A 3.86 ERA in 4 2/3 innings, 5 strikeouts, and a 1.29 whip. Mike, I know your question here was Johnson or Peterson, but at this point, you might be thinking, what if both of those guys get in over Jose Quijada, right?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to get rid of Quijada. I don't think that he's going anywhere because it just doesn't seem like the Angels have the guts to make those moves, John, because Jose Suarez is still on this team. And I think that what we saw on Sunday could give them reason to dump Suarez. And I'll talk about that in our final segment. But I don't know, John. I think if I'm going to go with one of those guys, I'm going with Johnson. But I think if you had Johnson and Peterson, I think that you've solidified the 5th, 6th inning roles that you would need for this bullpen. However, it'd be great if the Angels starting pitchers could go a little bit deeper into games. But both of those guys have been pretty good. I think I would rather go with Johnson than Peterson just because Johnson seems like a future strong bullpen piece. And Peterson has kind of been a journeyman, been around for a while. And so I'd love to see the young guy get an opportunity if it's between both of those guys. Yeah,
Peterson, you're going to go to because he's been there before, right? But he has been very much a journeyman. One offensive note from this game, Sean Noel had 2 more hits on Friday, was up to a 303 batting average at that point with an 850 OPS. Looks like he's been working on those adjustments at the plate. Definitely had some success on Friday. So that wraps up both games on Friday, and we want to thank you for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming up, the spring breakout game happened on Saturday. What did it say about the Angels' top prospects? We're going to get into that conversation coming right up.
Every day it's snack time. Time to grab a snack. Don't get the chewy gummies with the sour on it, the sweet on it. It's not good for you. It's just going to stick on your belly. It's not going to be healthy for you. What you need is Wonderful Pistachios, and you can grab some today at wonderfulpistachios.com. It's a snack that's both delicious and nutritious, and it's filled with a good source of protein. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to keep you going all day long. I mowed the lawn on Saturday, John, and I had Wonderful Pistachios. As I came inside, grabbed a handful of it, threw it in my mouth, went back out. Felt good, John. Felt really good. Go out there and mow that lawn, had all my energy and had my protein. I was excited about life.
Energy and a farmer's tan. Let's go.
There's the no-shell variety, which is John's favorite. There's the in-shell variety, which is also John's favorite. I like the in-shell at a game. I like the no-shell if I'm mowing the lawn. And you can get snackin and get crackin with the snack that packs a protein punch. Just visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. We want to thank you for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Hey, let's get into the games on Saturday. And let's start with the game that the Angels had where Jack Kohanowitz was on the mound. Mike, he went 3 1/3 innings, 6 hits, 3 earned runs, 3 walks, and 1 K. He was pulled in the top of the second after 2 walks, did return in the 3rd and 4th innings. And a closer look at the numbers are going to tell us 2 things. First, 5 of the 6 hitters that Kohanowitz gave up could have easily been outs that the defense didn't get to. But most importantly, Kohanowitz struggled with his control. He's not a guy who walks a lot of batters, but he did walk 3 in 3 1/3 innings pitched. Rhett Bollinger of MLB.com, who covers the Angels, he tweeted that Kohanowitz said that he didn't have his best stuff on Saturday and was frustrated by the 3 walks that he issued, but he is pleased with his spring overall and open to any role that the Angels have for him, whether it's as that 5th starter or out of the bullpen. Kohanowitz added, I can't really get too mad about ground balls when they sneak through because that's just the name of the game for me. So just really have to limit those walks. Mike, does this start and his comments make the Detmers decision between him and Kohanowitz? Does that make this whole thing easier, more difficult? What do you say?
I think on Saturday, it made it maybe a little bit easier to say, hey, Reed's going to be our 5th starter and Kohanowitz is going to start in AAA. But then Sunday happened, and what happened on Sunday with Reed, I think, gives some clarity for me. So I'm going to share that in the final segment. There was a second game, John, on Saturday. It was the spring breakout game against the Cubs. This is a 4-day event that showcases baseball's future players. the current stars of the minor leagues. There's 16 exhibition games that are going to be played between teams comprised of these young stars, top prospects. And MLB wants to create what they call a new touch point for baseball players and baseball fans. It helps celebrate the younger players in the sport. So the Angels use 7 of their top 10 prospects in this game. Here was the lineup, John. Nelson Rada, who's number 5 in the organization. Christian Moore batted 2nd. He is number 2 in the organization. Cole Fontenot batted 3rd. Rio Foster 4th. Denzer Guzman is the 8th ranked prospect. Then Anthony Skoll was the DH. Randy DeJesus, right field. Sam Brown at first. And then Juan Flores, he's the 9th ranked prospect at catcher, and he batted 9th. And Caden Dana started this game. And Johnny, he wasn't very good, was he?
No, it was a tough game against the Cubs. By the way, because it was a Cubs game, the broadcast team was from Marquee Sports in Chicago, and Lance Brozdowski, one of our favorite baseball guys on Twitter, was part of the call, which was cool to hear him talk about both the Cubs, but the Angels as well. And he's just a really smart baseball guy. We've referenced his work here on the show before. And so give him a follow if you haven't done so already. But Caden Dana, Mike, 2/3 of an inning, 4 runs, 4 hits, 2 walks through just 34 pitches in this game. Mike, I'm telling you, it's all about release point with Caden Dana.
Yeah.
This tells me that he needs to go back to Double-A and be part of that rotation with the Trash Pandas. Number 1, because he had such a successful year last year. But number 2, he's got to work on that. Somebody's got to work on that release point with him. His arm slot and release point are exposing everything that he's throwing. And in my, I wear glasses and I'm still trying to watch this game and hone in on what he's doing. And I feel like I could see the difference in where he was releasing, the off-speed stuff versus the fastball. And that's just a big problem. So I think putting him back in Double-A, where he's had success, but also working on that arm slot and that release point, let him be in a place where he can get his confidence back, but also where he can develop and work on the stuff that he needs to work on, because that's going to hold him back. Now, I know he's only 21. Ideally, you would have somebody like him maybe start touching the majors around 23 years old, and where you're like, okay, he's in our rotation this year. But he's got to work on that release point. Are we the only ones seeing this? Are we? Are fans like online the only ones seeing this? Because it feels very, very obvious. So I hope that gets corrected for Caden Dana. Now, on the other hand, we had a really great outing from George Clausen, didn't we?
Yeah, and the broadcasters loved him. They were going on and on and on about his off-speed stuff. He pitched a scoreless inning in this game. He struck out the 89th overall prospect in baseball, Kevin Alcantara, and he threw a really sharp slider that the broadcasters were like, whoa, that looks fantastic. And then the Angels got a scoreless inning from Chris Cortez, who is the 11th ranked player in the Angels organization.
I'm glad he had a good inning, because he struggled in spring, but it was also his first time facing professional baseball players. So great to see that from Chris Cortez. Mike, George Clausen had a all right spring, and I know that he wasn't up very long with the club, but it was nice to see him have a good outing against other prospects from the Cubs system, top prospects. So it was a little bit more evenly matched for him. So give him some time. Again, Caden Dana needs to correct some things, but it was really cool to see George Clausen, meet the level of the prospects that he was facing and have a good outing in that one.
Yeah, there's a lot of conversation on social media about, like, will he be a starter moving forward, because his stuff is so good, but it's so good, like, closer type of stuff. And so there was a lot of conversation about that. I don't think they're going to move him. I think he's going to be a starter for the Halos moving forward. He's just a young guy like Caden Dana that still needs to develop. And Chris Cortez was somebody that they're kind of battling back and forth if he's going to start or if he's going to be a bullpen guy. And quite honestly, the more starters that this team develops, the better the future actually looks. So I would say, like, you got to give him a couple of years maybe before you decide, hey, we're going to try him in this role instead of as a starter, because these guys just got started. And what George Clausen did last year was pretty impressive. What Caden Dana did, really impressive. And then Chris Cortez, the dude just got drafted. So it's an opportunity for him to prove what he can do. And I don't think that you have to make those decisions this year and or next year with these young guys.
Yeah. Hey, Nelson Rada was the only top 10 prospect who factored into the offense. He led off the game with a single, stole second, scored on a Cole Fontenelle hit. And then Cole Fontenelle added on with a homer in the 9th inning. And then Randy DeJesus hit a homer in the 5th inning. The Angels also had 17-year-old Josue Lugo, who's their number 6 prospect. We've talked about him before. He came in off the bench as the designated hitter, but he grounded out in his only at bat. So it was exciting to get to see him step into a game. Mike, what have we learned about the young guys and how the Angels prospects match up against the Cubs prospects and maybe even the wider world of baseball at this point?
They need time. And that's what's great about this team right now. This team is built for them to have some time in the minor leagues instead of rushing them up and having to rely on a young Reed Detmers like we did a few years ago, or a young Caden Dana this year. We actually get to wait. We get to pause. We get to let them develop. We get to work on release point stuff in AA. We get to work on maybe adding a pitch in AAA. Like, this is the type of stuff that Angel fans have been clamoring for. And so if you're frustrated after this game because the Angels didn't win or that Caden Dana didn't look great, there's no reason to be frustrated, because these guys are fresh babies when it comes to baseball, and they're still learning how to play. And, high five, hats off to Perry Manassian for putting a team together that doesn't put the pressure on the Angels having to rush these young guys into the starting rotation or into the starting lineup. It gives them time to develop. And quite honestly, I think that that's helpful, right? Like, the conversation about Joe Adell and Mickey Moniak in center field has been a hot topic for everydayers and for Angel fans this offseason and in spring training. And reality is that they both haven't impressed to the point where you're like, it's definitely going to be this person in center field. But the narrative about like who, get rid of those guys and just bring up some of the young guys, like Nelson Rada is 19 years old, who struggled in AA and hit 230, right? If he hit 230 in AA, he's going to hit $130 at the major league level, right? He might get on with a bunt and he might steal a bag and get us really excited. But the beauty of what we have right now in the team that we have at the major league level is it gives these young guys time to develop at the minor league level, which is what we've been clamoring for a really long time. And that's what we have right now with this team. So I think we can be excited about these young guys. Let them develop. Let them prove that they're not the last ranked minor leagues in all of baseball, that they're actually better than that. And in order to prove that, they just need some time in the minor leagues to work out the kinks that you and I have pointed out over the spring training time and watching them pitch and watching them hit.
I think about watching these guys in spring breakout, and it makes me think of this, Mike. I see a top-heavy prospect list and a bottom-heavy prospect list, meaning that you have some really good guys at the top, and you have some really great guys at the bottom of the list who just got into the Angel system. And a lot of those are the, international free agents that they signed. I think it's really top heavy, and I think it's really bottom heavy. And I don't think there's a lot of meat in the middle right now. And there could be. They have to develop, and they have to get better, and they have to get stronger, all of those things. So you have a lot of guys who could be on the cusp, like a Christian Moore, maybe even Cole Fontenelle, and some of the pitching that we have. But then you have a lot of guys like Nelson Rada, who needs more time because he's 19 years old. You have Caden Dana, who needs more time because he's 21, still needs to figure things out. You've got Denzer Guzman, who is still really young. You've got Yoán Flores, still really young. So a lot of guys on the cusp, and a lot of guys that need probably like 4 or 5 years at the most. And I think that's where the Angels stand in their prospects, and perhaps that's a big indication of why their rankings are where they're at.
Cole Fontenelle reminds me a lot of, not because he plays like them, but I think he's going to be a player that surprises us like Jared Walsh and Cole Calhoun. I think he's going to be somebody that isn't going to be highly touted, but then you give him an opportunity, and all of a sudden he's got a 285 batting average with 20, 25 home runs and 60, 70 RBIs, and he's playing a great third base for us, right? I really feel like what we've seen so far this spring from him is he's going to be the guy that nobody's going to count on, that nobody's going to be thinking about. He had that major injury last year, doesn't really have a lot of publicity around him. And then when he gets to the major league level, whenever that might be, he's going to be somebody that people go, wow, Cole quietly got an all-star nod. Yeah. Cole quietly has played a strong third base. He's going to be a guy that I think is going to be a strong piece for the Halos in the future.
Yeah, him and I really like David Mershon too, who
Yeah.
they drafted last year, and he's had a great spring as well. So yeah, maybe some guys who can come up through the pipeline, be that type where, I mean, gosh, I wasn't thinking about Jared Wallace except that he was the cow milking champion in 2019, right? They had that contest before the game, and then here he is, breaking out in 2020, being an all-star in 2021. It would be great if the Angels could find somebody like that in a Cole Fontenot.
Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? You're dining out, you're online shopping, there's other purchases, there's bill paying. It's easy to lose track, and that's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. It's not just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, all of your investments, and all of your spending in one place, so you can stop managing your money and start building your wealth. Managing money with your partner, it can be so easy and so smooth. You can track all of your shared and personal accounts. You can set goals, and you can stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances today with Monarch Money. Get started by going to their website, monarchmoney.com. Use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB. You're going to get 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Our promo code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year.
All right, talking about Sunday's game, Mike, we got some news before the Angels played against the Padres. Jeff Fletcher, the OC Register, tweeted that the Angels announced third baseman Yoán Moncada has a deep bruise in his right thumb, and he's out indefinitely. At first, it seemed like it was just a sore thumb, but turns out that it's a little bit worse for the wear. I mean, you can't grip the bat, you can't throw the ball, you can't do anything if that's bothering you. So he's going to be out indefinitely. Wash said nothing's torn, just some deep bruises. We've got to let it settle down before we start letting him try to hit. He also said that he's not sure if Moncada will be ready for opening day on March 27th. Moncada on Saturday said that his thumb felt better and he thought he might be able to play again as soon as Monday, but further evaluations changed that timetable. Moncada's absent means that Rengifo is likely going to get the most starts at third base to start the season, and then it creates somewhat of an opening at second base, considering Kevin Newman will probably be there at short, Luis Rengifo at third. Now, at second base, you've got options. You've got Kyron Paris, you've got Christian Moore, you've got Tim Anderson. In fact, entering Sunday, Tim Anderson was 9 for 37, 243 batting average with a 651 OPS, but he has been doing better since getting off for a 2 for 17 start in spring. Seems like it took him a while to come around and really find it at the plate in spring.
Yeah, I think it's going to be him, John. I think he's going to be at second base, and I think Kyron Paris also makes the opening day roster as well. And I think those two guys are going to be on this opening day roster. I do think that maybe J.D. Davis will be considered, and I could see them taking Davis and Anderson over Paris and Anderson. I would rather see Kyron up there. I did see a great tweet, though, that talked about Kyron Paris's at-bats against major league talent versus minor league talent, and he's been much better against minor league talent than major league pitchers. So I think that might be an indication as well, and maybe they send him back down to work on some things, and you have two veterans on your roster, J.D. Davis and Tim Anderson. Davis, who can play the infield but also play first base and third base, and then Anderson, who can play short, play second base. So I think my gut says it's going to be Anderson for sure. And I won't be surprised if J.D. Davis is another infielder that they bring up with them on opening day.
If we have some IL stints, going back to our conversation about Quijada, I wouldn't be surprised, Mike, if there was Quijada, he's got some fatigue.
Yeah.
He's gonna some arm fatigue.
Yeah.
So might see something there, and so that way they can bring up another person on the 40-man to fill out that bullpen. Now, regarding Sunday's game, the game plan was for Kyle Hendricks to go 5 and then Reed Detmers to go 4 innings and finish the game. Kyle Hendricks did go 5. He gave up 5 hits, 2 earned runs, 2 walks, and 2 strikeouts in this one. So really not a bad line from Kyle Hendricks. And then Detmers went 4 as planned, gave up 4 hits and 2 earned runs, 4 strikeouts, and no walks, actually. Yeah. So that's a good sign from Reed Detmers.
Yeah, John, I think that Reed Detmers could potentially be the long reliever that Jose Suarez is right now. And the reason why I think that is because the last 2 times he's pitched, he's come in and finished the game. And he's not been great. And I know you look at these numbers and you look at his previous outing, they're not bad. 4 innings, 4 hits, 1 earned in the last game. He had 2 earned in this one with 4 Ks, no walks. They're not bad, but you got to remember who he's doing this against. He's doing this against second tier players, third tier players. So with Kohanowitz struggling like he did in his start this weekend, and then Reed Detmers coming in and not being super great, but not being super terrible, my gut says, John, that they keep Kohanowitz and they figure out what to do with Reed Detmers, maybe in a long relief role, and let him be around for maybe a bit on the major league roster. I just don't know if they're going to send him down because of what happened last year with his timing. And I think out of respect for him, I think they're going to keep him. And in my mind, it makes sense to not have Jose Suarez on this team at all, and to have somebody like a Reed Detmers or a Jack Kohanowitz in that role. I know you want to get him reps and all of those things, which I get, but I think it makes more sense to have those 2 guys on the opening day roster and operating in that rhythm than it does having Suarez on this team. And I wonder if that's why they've been having Reed Detmers come in after a Kyle Hendricks start to finish out the game. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know that him coming in after a start is necessarily coming out of the bullpen thing, but at the same time, it makes sense because he's done that a couple of times now. So I'm with you. I just don't think that was necessarily the intention. I think it's kind of like that thing that they've been doing where, the catching spot has gone to d'Arnaud and Logan O'Hoppe, or I should say the number 2 spot in the order has gone to the catchers, d'Arnaud and O'Hoppe. So I kind of wonder if it's something along that line, but it has been somewhat effective when you think about it, and Detmers finishing up the game. And really that's what it comes down to, Mike, is how efficient Detmers can be throughout the game. And the fact that he was able to go 4 and not throw a ton of pitches like he usually does. I'm hoping that it's more of just the case of getting those reps in, trusting his stuff, and being able to be the guy that we all know that we think he can be. So that's a thought there for Reed Detmers. Matthew Lugo got a little league home run in this one, has had a great spring, Mike, hitting 326 and an 832 OPS. Man, I think that he's making a case for himself as well. If he's not going to make this opening day roster, I certainly think Matthew Lugo is going to be the next man up. And the fact that they have not been trying him at third base because he has been an infielder in the past, what are you doing? You got all the opportunity in the world for this guy. So maybe he'll start the season in the minors. Maybe they'll try him back out over at the corner infield spot.
Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On Fantasy Baseball with our friends Matt and Dom. Going to get you ready for the fantasy draft and for the fantasy season. You're going to be the most informed fan, and you're going to draft the best team because of Matt and Dom's help. You can find their show on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, be sure you give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram, whether you're watching or listening. Come on over to today's show on YouTube, get in the comment section, hit that subscribe button. It would really help us out. Put our show in front of other Angel fans who don't know about Locked On Angels and want to be part of the ride for this season. Hey, Mike, what do we have on deck for Tuesday's show?
We're going to recap the game that happens today. We're also going to talk about the lineup possibilities that Ron Washington is bringing to the table. And, John, we're going to discuss Brock Burke. They changed him. They've developed him. They've helped figure something out. The Angels do that. I know that the narrative is that they don't, but the Angels did figure out something with him. We're going to tell you what they did. And it wasn't this huge thing, John. It was something very small, but it changed how Brock Burke would throw and approach the hitter. It's a good conversation. We're going to talk about that tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
All right, looking forward to that conversation. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, everybody, and we'll see you back here on Tuesday.
One more week, and then we have real baseball.
Real baseball. Spring's here. My allergies are killing me.
Chew.